There's something exciting going on at Jaguar. A small group of engineers is quietly trying to take the brand into new, faster territory. I say quietly, but really the new XKR S GT is anything but quiet. It's a £135,000 track weapon that might just be the answer to the affluent Nürburgring day trippers' dreams. And this is how you add £37,000 to an XKR S. First, you don't add any power or torque. Really, you keep the same 542 horsepower and 502 foot-pounds as before. You may think that's a bit mean, but withhold judgment for now, because the GT is all about chassis and aerodynamics. That bodywork is very effective. The combination of massive rear wing and a front splitter that adds 60mm to the length of the car and a flattened underbody bring a claimed 145 kilograms of downforce at the 186 mph maximum. This time I actually believe the figures. The chassis is completely revised using hardware and knowledge gleaned from the F-Type, so the steering rack is mostly F-Type tweaked for this application. The front suspension only shares the upper arm with the standard car, the rest is all new, including a 52mm increase in track width and a 255 section tyre. Spring rate is up 68% and the dampers are completely recalibrated. All of this stuff is very expensive. The same goes at the rear. Much new hardware, 22% stiffer spring, a wider tyre, Pirelli P0 coursers all round by the way, and, like the front axle, a set of carbon ceramic brakes. The fronts are 398mm. Inside you get some snazzy bucket seats, a few logos and a half cage where the rear seats once were. And you get a ring lap time of 7 minutes 40 seconds, which is mighty fast for something this big.
Okay, over the start-finish line then. Oulton Park in October. Unsurprisingly, it's a little bit wet, so I'm going to try and string together something that's vaguely in a straight line for you. But it's a shame because this car's setup is clearly for dry weather, and we're getting a bit of standing water now. Immediately the car feels more connected, most apparently for me through the steering. Steering is really connected compared to an XKR S to me. Bloody hell, that wasn't meant to happen. Okay. Even in the wet, we've got pretty good traction. I mean, these Jags have always struggled for traction as far as I'm concerned. I'm having to go offline to look for the grip, rather irritatingly. Motor, that really pulls. That really, really pulls. I quite like this sort of approximation of what a sportier XKR should be. It's not, doesn't feel like a GT3 to me. There goes the steer. I'm really not trying to do that. It's a shame I just can't tell you more about the dry handling of the car. I can tell you about the excitement of the package though, and I do think it's a really cool thing. I know it's slippery, guys. It really is slippery. Okay, so I'm afraid we're going to have to resort to a bit of yobbery because it's just so slippery. The car has real balance. Obviously she's a big old girl, but it does have really nice balance. Brakes, it's got these great big carbon ceramic brakes which are of a different quality to anything I've felt on a Jaguar before. Blimey. That's not supposed to happen there, I don't think. Flipping hell. Oulton Park at the end of the season in October is slippery as you know what. This is Druids. Druids is a... That shouldn't be happening at Druids, should it? That should not be happening at Druids. That's third gear, 70 miles an hour. This car is approachable, and do you know what? The diff isn't overheating, which always happens in these Jaguars, so they've obviously done something there. Do you know what? I think we need to probably just slightly abandon the wetness. Because that's quite full on. Dearie me.
Typically, once we stopped filming, it stopped raining, and then I had the chance to lap and lap and lap the GT. I think I did 60 loops of passenger rides before the day was up, and this was something of a revelation for me. On a dry track, this thing is a complete weapon, not just because the Corsa tyres have massive grip and the brakes pin you in the harness belts, but because the GT took the punishment without a single complaint, no brake fade, no nothing, but also because it gets better the harder you push. In dynamic mode, the dampers are fixed and passive. The car wants to be grabbed, driven with a little oversteer, and it feels very responsive. The diff didn't overheat, not once did I want more power. The only downside was the 6-speed auto. It'll shift manually, but the whole thing's just out of date now. But the rest of the car is a real surprise. If this is the driving experience a few enthusiastic engineers can distill from an XK, then I can't wait to see what they might do with the F-Type. The GT isn't a GT3, but then it doesn't need to be. Taking on the GT3 headfirst is plain stupid. This car retains 95% of an XK's comfort and will lap a circuit very, very fast, all the time remaining a real Jaguar. I think that's rather appealing.